Ever had one of those days where one small thing goes wrong and suddenly everything spirals out of control? Now imagine that. But it's 1914, and instead of your day being ruined, the entire world gets dragged into a massive war. Welcome to World War I, a conflict that didn't start with a grand plan or a clear villain. Just tensions, alliances, and one incredibly unlucky car ride. Let's break down how it all unfolded. Picture Europe in the early 20th century like a crowded group chat, but instead of questionable stuff, it's filled with decades of grudges and secret pacts. On one side, there's the Triple Entente, France, Britain, and Russia. On the other side, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. These powers were tangled up in a web of rivalry over colonies, territory, and national pride. Imagine an arms race where countries competed to build bigger battleships and stockpile weapons, all while jockeying for influence across continents. Nationalism was strong, imperial ambitions were growing, and alliances meant that any conflict could escalate quickly. The whole continent was like a powder keg, waiting for a spark. And that spark came on June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was on a visit to Sarajevo. Enter Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Serbian nationalist with a cause and some terrible timing. After a failed assassination attempt earlier in the day, Princip unexpectedly crossed paths with the Archduke's car and fired the shots that killed Franz Ferdinand and his wife. Austria-Hungary exploded in anger and blamed Serbia, issuing an ultimatum with demands they knew Serbia wouldn't fully accept. Serbia tried to comply as much as possible, hoping to avoid war. But Austria-Hungary declared war anyway. Russia, which saw itself as Serbia's protector, began mobilizing troops. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, viewed Russia's mobilization as a direct threat and declared war on Russia. France, allied with Russia, joined the conflict. Germany then invaded Belgium to get to France faster, which brought Britain into the war because Britain had pledged to protect Belgian neutrality. In less than 2 weeks, most of Europe was at war. Many countries entered the war believing it would be short and victorious, a quick, heroic campaign to assert dominance. Instead, they got something much darker. World War I was a clash between old and new. Military tactics rooted in the 19th century were met with industrial-age weapons, machine guns, tanks, poison gas. Cavalry charges ran headfirst into barbed wire and artillery fire. It was devastating. The war dragged on for years, becoming a grueling battle of attrition. At the start, no one fully understood the scale or horror ahead. Leaders and soldiers alike were caught up in nationalism and pride, convinced the war would be over quickly. Instead, millions died in endless trenches filled with mud, disease, and despair. What was supposed to be a limited conflict turned into a prolonged nightmare that reshaped the modern world. The war's aftermath saw empires fall, new countries formed, and the geopolitical landscape forever changed. One might argue that what Gavrilo did was not only the fire-starter for World War I, but also for World War II and the following events. And it all started with a chance encounter during a drive and a tragic decision that nobody could have predicted. History isn't just dates and battles. It's people, choices, and unintended consequences. It's the story of how small moments can trigger huge events. Thanks for watching. If this helped make a complex war a bit clearer, or at least more interesting, like and subscribe. See you next time.